Good evening, everybody. Welcome by Mindful Elevation Caribbean. We are back with our live interviews where we're going to have a fun time. We're going to have discussions, interesting discussion, and also important discussion to inform you about different topics. So tonight, it's going to be our first interview for our next series, which is going to be all things women related. And our first guest is going to be an eating psychology coach, Mrs. Joanne Edinberg. And then, of course, during the our conversation, you will hear a little bit more what it exactly it entails and what all she is doing. And we're going to be talking about the weight. How we look at our weight, especially as a women as our obsessions, and that we often think that how we look is not good and that we have to be changing our weight, eating more, trying to lose weight with all the consequences of that. So we're going to get all the information, talking about all the myths that there is in the world. We're trying to see if we can debunk them. So we're going to start by welcome Mrs. Joanne Edinberg. Good night. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward
You're
to
most
talking
welcome.
about this.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Sure.
So let me start with you telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Joanne Edinberg, and I'm an eating psychology coach. And I really am on a mission to help women end the quest for the perfect body and the perfect diet. I work with women one on one as a coach to help shift the stress around food, weight, and body image to being more relaxed about those issues. So that's really my primary mission.
Nice. And what is the reason that you decided to go in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like most women, I've never been comfortable with my body. Um, from an early age, I was very self-conscious, and I, I think when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of eating issues around food sensitivities and some health issues that came up, and so I realized that there were a lot of foods that I didn't do well with, and so on the one hand, I learned um, the benefit and as food is medicine, really. But on the flip side, I started to have a lot of beliefs about food being the enemy, that if I ate certain things, I wouldn't feel good. And then I didn't trust what I could eat. And so all those negative beliefs caused a lot of stress. And so eating was a pretty stressful experience. And so I think when I found the program that I went through to become an eating psychology coach, I finally understood the relationship between stress and metabolism and digestion, and how important it is to understand those issues. And for me, I just learned so much and understood that so much better, and that I wanted to help other women to do the same, because I think it's the missing link in this work around food issues and weight challenges, is we're not focusing on the bigger picture, the psychology piece, all the things besides food that impact our relationship with food and with our bodies, who we are as eaters, why we eat, how we eat, when we eat, all of those issues are important, and all the stressors in our lives that can impact our relationship with food and with our bodies. So that's what I love to do. Yeah.
And why you think that we women or a lot of us does be stressing about the food actually?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as people become more and more knowledgeable about food and how important it is in our health. I think in some ways, like many of us, like me for sure, I'm like a recovering perfectionist, right? I want to always get it right, figure out the best way, the perfect way. And so I think that's a piece of it. We're trying to do things to make ourselves healthier. But in the end, it kind of backfires because, there is no perfect way. And always looking to the outside and the so-called experts and the latest new diet fad, or, if you just think about the diet industry, the weight loss industry, we get lots of messages about that we're broken, that we don't know how to take care of ourselves, that we can't trust ourselves, that we have to do things this particular way in a very rigid way. And I think it makes it's very stressful, actually.
Yeah.
We've lost our trust in ourselves to know what's best for us.
Yes, correct. Because we being, like you said, we being bombarded with that the whole day,
Mm-hmm.
every day. And
Mm-hmm.
especially because it's so easily accessible, even when you're watching, for example, a movie on YouTube or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
ads pops up. And especially if one time you happen to click on one, that's it.
Right.
You will
Yep.
continue
Forget
looking
it.
at yes. And
Yes, it's
especially
constant.
those yes. And especially those young girls that are very impressionable and they're still growing,
Mm-hmm.
their minds are still developing. It can
Yes.
easily have an influence and impact on them.
Yes, absolutely. With social media in particular, and TV and movies, there was so much messaging, visual messaging, that's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And, from a very early age, I think for girls, it's younger and younger that we're getting bombarded, like you said, with these messages of what we're supposed to look like, and,
Mm-hmm.
the ideal body. And so it's very hard to discount that because it's just
Yeah.
everywhere. So,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
yeah.
I noticing now that they starting to include all body types, but
Hmm.
where you can still see the majority is indeed one particular body type that is what they would like to call the norm and what you
Hmm.
have to be looking like. So it's
Yes.
it's it's hard out there.
It is. I think, like you said, it's getting a little bit better, but it's still the majority is this one particular body size and look. And I mean, if you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense. Like, we're all very
Mm-mm.
unique. We're not all supposed to be the same weight, the same size, the same this, that, or the other thing, right?
Correct.
But that's what we're told. We're told that
Yes.
there's something wrong with us if we don't look like that.
Mm-hmm.
From a very early age, especially for women, I think we get the message that our worth is dependent on our physical appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's a big piece of it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And then indeed um if you are in your moment that you're not feeling all too well or your self-esteem for which other reason isn't so high, it
hmm
can have an impression on you because even up to now, sometimes I would be talking with people, and then if they didn't see me for a little while, they would tell me, "Oh, you lost weight. You're looking very good and everything," or "Oh, what you did? You gained weight." And sometimes
hmm
I myself, I'm thinking, imagine if I would not be the strong person that I am and loving
yes.
myself for how I am. However, if I did lose weight or not lose weight for whichever reason,
hmm
it would have a big impact on me because sometimes that's the first thing that people will tell you when they see you.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that's a huge issue, and it's something to get very aware of. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really focus on that for myself, and talking to my clients about that. Let's stop commenting on women's appearance. Let's
Mm-hmm.
focus on the other things that make us want to be with them. that
Yeah.
make them a valuable person or a valuable friend or coworker or whatever it is, because
Mm-hmm.
we're just buying into that. We don't realize it, but we think we're giving people a compliment by saying, "Oh, you look so great. You lost weight." But what is that actually saying? Of course, they're the same person that they were before, and
Mm-hmm.
you're giving a lot of worth to our physical appearance by commenting on that. So I think
Yes.
that's one step that we can all take, as women and as men, to really notice that and to
Mm-hmm.
focus on other things, because
Yes.
the idea is to make our physical appearance more neutral. Like that's not the most important thing um, about us. And
Mm-hmm.
so we need to be really conscious of that, because it is
Yeah.
so ingrained.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, indeed.
yeah.
Viewers, in between, if you have any questions and comments, you can always post that, and that we will address it during the show. So I have Bakari that's saying, exactly, I never understood their twisted obsession with body shaming others. Yeah,
Hmm.
that is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very rampant in our
Uh-huh.
society, and I don't think we mean to be like that, but it's
Mm-hmm.
so true. I mean, and if we don't have a lot of our own self-esteem, like we do use comparison to feel good about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
helpful, but it makes sense that we do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Why for you is the psychology part in all this important? What is the connection
Yeah.
between all the aspects?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, our thoughts and our emotions are a huge piece of issues related to food and body. So I think the foundational piece in my work has to do with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And, our bodies are meant to digest and metabolize when we're in that relaxation state. And the opposite is the stress response. So those are two halves of our, part of our autonomic nervous system. And we need to have that stress response for when we're dealing with emergencies. But too often, so many of us kind of live in that chronic stress response. And what happens in the body physiologically is the opposite of what we need to be happening when we're trying to digest our food and metabolize our food. Like, all the blood goes to our extremities, our breathing changes, our enzymes aren't getting released in our digestive tract. Like, if we're super stressed, our digestion shuts down. So, it's no wonder that we have issues if we're feeling stressed. So the stress piece is really big. And part of that is our beliefs about food and about our body that creates actually a stress response. If we eat something and we think, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have just eaten that, that's a bad food, categorizing foods as good or bad or healthy or unhealthy. Like, when we're eating all the good stuff, it's great, right? But when we eat the quote unquote unhealthy foods, then we start having that guilt and shame creep in, the negative thoughts, and that actually puts us into a stress response.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I work with my clients on, is trying to be aware of that, and seeing, where there's stress and what things we can do to have more relaxation in our lives, things that we can control. There's some things we can't control, but there's lots of things you can do, both in how we eat, just slowing down, being more mindful. Those are the kinds of things that will help us to feel relaxed and put us in the right state for metabolism, as well as the other things in our lives that are happening that aren't serving us. And so we want to be more and more in that happy, compassionate, kind, loving, having purpose in our lives, laughter. Those are all going to put us at that frequency where we're feeling relaxed and we're going to be helping our metabolism and ultimately our weight.
Mhm.
And when we're stressed, the opposite is happening. You're actually not absorbing nutrients properly when you're stressed. So your body actually thinks you didn't just eat. It doesn't recognize that you're feeding yourself. So it's no
Mhm.
wonder that we overeat, or we're still hungry, or we have cravings. I mean, that's a natural response of the body. So there's nothing that we did wrong. It's not about willpower. It's just understanding, like, that the body's just doing what it's supposed to do, and we need to
Yeah.
help it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a whole mindset that we kind of like
Yes.
have to change, and so we can learn to be more mindful and enjoy the food and chew,
Hmm.
relax. We are so in a rush culture nowadays that
Yes.
it's only producing, and then even sometimes when we eating, like you said, we just eating because we need to put food, and we're not even paying attention how we
Right.
eat or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so important. Like, and the way we eat is kind of a metaphor for how we live. So if we
Mm-hmm.
live a very fast-paced life where we're not really paying attention and we're not mindful, we're not slowing down, um, eating is usually reflected in that same way. So
Yeah.
being able to slow down with food can actually impact the rest of our lives as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being more mindful, being more conscious of what we're doing, paying
Yeah.
attention. Yeah.
Mhm. How we can eat our unhealthy food and not feeling guilty or not getting the
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it takes a real mindset shift, and not demonizing foods. More foods
Mhm.
do not have a moral quality to them. They're just food. And
Yes.
there are times where, like, even the same foods can be very good for us or not, depending on our state of mind. So thinking about that, um, it's, you can eat the healthiest, quote unquote, healthiest food in the world, and if you're eating under stress and you're not enjoying it and you're not happy, it's not going to give you the good nutrition
Hmm.
anyways.
Yeah.
So it's very important to kind of relax, in my opinion, really allow food and just notice for yourself what is good for you and what isn't, what feels good, what doesn't. And it's going to be different. Like, I don't think it's a static thing. I mean, there are some foods that maybe you're allergic to, that you have a strong
Hmm.
reaction to, and that's different. But most people, most foods, it varies. It varies based on the time of the month, especially for women, the time of our lives, our what's going on in our life. And if you're having a nice celebration about something, it makes a lot of sense to enjoy whatever food you're having in that situation. And so I think relaxing and not having those negative beliefs can help. And also just kind of shifting out of that self-judgment and criticism to a place of curiosity and understanding, like, well, why do I do this? Why do I want to eat this right now? And is it, how do I feel about that? And just noticing how we feel ourselves and the kind of messages we're giving ourselves, and that negative self-talk or positive self-talk in that
Hmm.
moment,
Yeah.
I think is key. And just kind of
Hmm.
trying to shift, like, just getting curious, just trying to be accepting and compassionate of ourselves no matter what. Like, we might be going through a really stressful time, and most of us learned, that food is a comfort. I mean,
Hmm.
it is meant to be comforting, actually.
Yeah.
As a baby,
Hmm.
you get food to comfort you. So there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. And just kind of noticing that, but also developing other ways to meet our needs besides food. So if we're upset, um, having kind of a go-to list of, like, well, what are some other things I can do to meet my needs for comfort, or nourishment or connection or just feeling good. Can I call a friend? Can I go for a walk? Can I go out in nature, or whatever it is for you? Play some music. You know.
Yeah. Mhm.
So being accepting of ourselves where we're at, but also kind of starting to develop some new ways of thinking about these things and having
Yeah.
other go-tos besides food. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think is part of it.
Yeah. Indeed, being accepting of yourself is it's a very good thing because I noticing with myself too, food that I could have eat before or when I was a little bit younger, I can't eat
Mm-hmm.
now, or
Mm-hmm.
even the quantity that I was eating, I can't eat anymore because then the next day or a few hours after, I will feel
Mm-hmm.
bad, not bad as in my stomach. I will feel my stomach, I will feel
Yeah.
bloated, all kind of thing. And then it's like you said,
Yeah.
sometimes I want to eat that food, so I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think about how bad I'm going to feel or how bad my body is going to feel after. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's and like having that compassion for ourselves, like, okay, well, in the moment it felt good, it seemed like the right thing to do, and then the next day you're like, well, maybe not. So
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like not being like, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, why did I do that again? Just like, oh, that's
Hmm.
interesting. Like, I wonder why. I was really enjoying myself in that moment, and it didn't
Hmm.
seem like a big deal, and now I'm not feeling that great. It's okay. Well, maybe next time I'll think about that. Maybe I won't. It's okay. Either way,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm. Indeed. Indeed. Otherwise, like you said, you're going to be stressing about it the whole
Right.
time.
The stress is what kills us,
Hmm.
literally and
Indeed.
figuratively. So, yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So tell us about some myths because
Hmm.
we all know there are a lot of myths when it comes to weight, dieting, and how we look
Yeah.
at food.
Yeah. I mean, I think, okay, so one of the biggest ones is this whole calorie in minus calorie out is weight loss or gain or weight maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're machines, we're like a car, you put in the gas, that's the energy we use for fuel, and when it runs out, we need more.
Mm-hmm.
We're not machines. We're much more complicated than that. Like we were talking about, like your state of mind is so important when it comes to utilizing food as energy, for example. So, that's, I don't think that's ever been proven, but it's a consistent myth that people keep going to. Like, you just have to eat less, exercise more. And
Mm-hmm.
the reality is that, like, eating less is not a good strategy for weight loss. Our bodies are meant to survive. So when, you know, we don't eat enough food, the body starts to think, we're starving. We're actually in starvation mode. At the beginning, it works. Like we do tend to lose weight when we restrict our calories at the beginning. And then
Mm-hmm.
after a while, the body's like, okay, this is not a short term thing. We need to start conserving. We need to conserve fat. We need to conserve energy. We need to slow down the metabolism so that we don't starve. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really bad strategy for losing weight. And the yo-yo dieting is even worse because the body just gets really confused. And um, so that's probably the biggest one. Um, the issue of weight and health being so intertwined and strongly connected, I think, is also a myth. I mean, there are definitely some connections to being overweight and having health issues, but if weight is the only issue, it's actually been proven by the science that it is not a health concern. There are many people who are quote unquote overweight that are perfectly healthy. And we know there's many people who are underweight who are not healthy at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think the stress of living in a large body definitely can contribute to health issues, but that's the cause, not necessarily the weight. Because there's so much fat phobia and discrimination really against
Yeah.
people who
Mm-hmm.
are overweight, especially
Mm-hmm.
largely overweight.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense to me. But so I think kind of relaxing about that and knowing that, because there's so much stress around being overweight, and many, healthcare providers really buy into that myth as well,
Mm-hmm.
and talk about, well, if you just lose weight, then, then we'll try these things. You got to lose the weight first. And it's very stressful. And many people aren't able to lose, we're kind of at the weight we're supposed to be at, like I said
Mm-hmm.
before, we're not all meant to be the same size. And
Correct.
it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, you can try to punish your body into being a small size, but I don't think it's a long-term strategy anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another big one, I would say. Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't fall under the myth category, but for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's also the BMI.
BMI.
Um,
Yeah.
because how to put it, Caribbean people are,
Mm-hmm.
our body type is
Mm-hmm.
different,
Mm-hmm.
but then most of the time, our BMI are still being calculated based on, for example, a European
Yeah.
body type. And then we will always fall under the overweight or extremely overweight and those kind of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that is actually something too that even we as individual need to take a look at. It might be good to, yes, calculate your BMI, but then also keep in mind which BMI numbers you're going to
Mm-hmm.
use.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a huge myth, actually. BMI, using BMI as a measure to determine your health.
mm-hmm,
There's no science behind it from what I've read. Literally no
mm-hmm,
science behind it. So yeah, that's a huge disservice, I think, to people to use that.
yeah,
Like, how do you feel? If you feel like, there's lots of people that go to the doctor, they feel fine, and they're told that they're overweight and that that's a problem. If you're
mm-hmm,
having health issues, sure. Okay, maybe that's part of the issue. But if you're perfectly healthy, why are we doing that? Why are we
yeah,
even talking about that? Like, it should be
mm-hmm,
much, and that's what I focus on with my clients, is not so much how you look, or getting to this particular weight or body size. It's like, how do you feel? If you feel good physically, emotionally, mentally, because health is so much bigger than just our physical health
mm-hmm,
anyways.
yeah,
How what's going on in your life that makes you either feel good or bad, and that is going to impact our health, and that's so much more important. How are your relationships? Are you connecting with other people? Do you have work that's meaningful? um, you know so many things. Are you getting fresh air? Are you getting sunshine? I mean, so many things impact enough sleep, our health, that is way
mm-hmm,
beyond weight.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that we should be focusing more on that.
Correct. And I
Yeah.
am really happy that, especially the past years, that we started focusing more on that it's not only your weight counting, but
Mm-hmm.
how you're feeling, like you're saying, your emotional,
Mm-hmm.
your state of mind, how all is that, where are you in your life, instead of making your weight a priority, not
Yeah.
priority, the main focus.
Right. Right. And I mean, like, it does make sense that we do focus on that, just because there's just, everyone's telling us that we should, right?
Yeah.
But the
Mm-hmm.
more we can focus on other things, the better, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how how easy or is it challenging for you to make your clients aware that not everything has to be around weight?
I mean, it is challenging, but I think just kind of changing the mindset and focusing on other things. The more we can focus on the other things in our lives that make us happy, the less we're
Mm-hmm.
going to be focused on our weight. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of hyper focus on weight and food, and the more we can spend time doing other things that make us happy, that nourish us, the less, it's just naturally going to shift away from worrying
Mm-hmm.
about those things,
Yeah.
because then you'll be more in that happy state, and um, it just becomes less of an issue. So I focus a
Mm-hmm.
lot on that, is, how can you bring more nourishment, happiness into your life, um, things that make you
Mm-hmm.
feel good, and
Yeah.
then you actually just start spending more of your time doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, Give us a concrete example, because I can imagine that somebody that is very busy and always on the go, 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 then it might
Mm-hmm.
be a little challenging to find a way to maybe slow down or
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the sunshine.
Right. Yeah. It depends on your situation, but even taking the time, like say you're in a job where you don't really have a whole lot of time to even eat lunch, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Yeah.
like prioritizing that, to say, I am going to actually take the time to eat my lunch and focus on eating my lunch, maybe eating my lunch outside. You're very lucky to live in a place where it's more amenable to being outside. And so
Mm-hmm.
just even like start small, 10 minutes. I'm just going to take 10 minutes, sit outside and eat my lunch if you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or after work or before work, just spend that amount of time just
Mm-hmm.
being outside, for example. But
Yeah.
actually taking the time to prioritize mindful and slow eating, I think can make
Mm-hmm.
a huge difference, because
Yeah.
um, when you're rushing through eating, if you're eating at your desk or while you're in the car or whatever it is, and you're not actually focusing on eating, you're just doing yourself a disservice anyways, because you're not going to be metabolizing very well.
Mm-hmm.
And like you might still be hungry because your body's like, did you just eat? I didn't notice that. So it's just in starting slow, and then in going from there. Start with
Yeah.
5 minutes, maybe 10, maybe 15, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's at a different meal, maybe it's at dinner when you're with other people, and to actually sit down at the table and nothing else is going on other than
Mm-hmm.
eating and conversing. No
Yeah.
phones, no technology. um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just starting to figure out little ways to make those changes and start shifting how
Yeah.
we do things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on top of that, especially too, to tell yourself not feeling guilty
Right,
because
right, right. Like this is the challenge of adding these new ideas and new practices.
Mhm.
It's like then if you didn't know about it before, like ignorance is bliss, right? It's like,
Yes, yes.
but now so, oh no, I didn't actually slow down. I didn't take the time to eat and not do
Hmm.
anything else at the same time. Then you start to feel worse. So it's like that balance of having compassion for yourself, doing it when you
Hmm.
can. It's not always going to happen, and that's life. And
Yeah.
that's just another opportunity to give yourself kindness and be accepting. Like,
Hmm.
well, today was just too busy and I couldn't do it, but tomorrow I'm going to try. Or I'm just going to try once a week.
Yeah.
Not every
Hmm.
day. Not having those super high standards, and just do your best. And that's what's important. Just
Yeah.
making small shifts. It's the small
Correct.
shifts that are important. You're not going to
Yeah.
shift everything at once. And
Correct.
yeah,
Correct. And also not leaving other people give you like a guilt trip, because like for
yeah,
me, I work at a school, and then at the
mm-hmm.
time that I would like to take my break to eat my lunch
Yeah,
is the happiest day of the school, where you have students and teachers
yeah,
and everybody coming. And then
yeah,
sometimes it's like, but why you eating? No, I need you now, so you can't be eating. And then
mm-hmm.
sometimes I really need to put my foot down and say,
Mm-hmm.
no, now is my time. Come back in
Mm-hmm.
like 10 minutes. And so
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's really important to set those boundaries because you're right. We live in a culture that doesn't um, respect that, right? We don't
yeah.
take time for ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves, and then it becomes the culture. And so if you do it, there's something wrong with you, or you're not putting in your time or whatever. But we can be an example to other people, and to be able to say, like, look, if I take the time for myself now to eat slowly and to take an actual break, I'm going to do a better job after
Mm-hmm.
lunch
Yeah.
to be more present with the kids and to
Mm-hmm.
do my work. So we need to fill ourselves up and take care of ourselves to be able to be our best, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to practice that and model that for other people too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
that it's easy, but I'm
No,
not saying
no.
that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you said, it's kind of like every day reminding yourself to try a little bit and
Exactly.
see how far you can reach.
Yeah.
So it's yes, it
Yeah.
is a
Just
challenge.
a little bit every day, because
Mm-hmm.
those little practices feed on themselves. Like once you
Yeah.
start being able to do something a little bit every day, then you feel like you miss it if you don't do it. And so then it's
Mm-hmm.
more motivating and you're more inspired to do other things or more
Yeah.
of those. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said at the beginning, when you're feeling happy with yourself, it shows as well to other people. And then even then, I noticing that people addressing you a little bit different. It's kind of like it
mm-hmm,
calming them down as well. And then
mm-hmm.
before they're addressing you maybe in a rude way or whatever. So it has an impact on the people around you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, like that energy that we exude is contagious. It really is. And
Mm-hmm.
so the more we can take care of ourselves, the more we can spread that to other people too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so Bakari was saying when we was talking, in that case, I guess I'm always stressed. That was when we were talking about the eating. And then when we were making the comment about the body shaming, and that's the first thing that people addressing, he was also indicating that maybe it's their way to take attention away from their own issues.
I think that's true. Yeah. I think we do project our issues onto other people,
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
sure. And the
Yeah.
stress around eating, I mean, that's pretty typical. There's not many people who are very relaxed, slow eaters. Eating
Mm-mm.
fast is actually a stress response. And again, like, not to make you feel worse about things. Don't be stressed about being stressed. It's just being aware of it, and so that we can kind of notice it more and then start to make small changes.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to slow down it's a big deal, actually, because
Yeah.
most people eat really fast. I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
true in your culture, if that's different, but I know certainly in American culture, it's like we live very fast food culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over here too.
Mhm.
Depending on what type of job you have or the
Mhm.
day, yes, we tend to eat
Mhm.
very fast because it's not
Mhm.
something that kind of like we make it a priority. So we eat
Mhm.
fast, fast, fast so we can continue again with a job, or we eat at our desk while we still writing a report. We trying to
Mhm.
put food in our stomach because we
Yeah.
have to eat. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's not, it's less about nourishing your body and paying attention to you for you to
Mhm.
be able to continue. Then
Right.
yeah, you have
Yeah.
to eat.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
But yeah, it is. It
Mhm.
is. But indeed, over here too, we just pay a lot of attention to our weight, trying
Mhm.
to lose weight because we're trying to conform to a particular stereotype. So
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think it's everywhere.
It
So
is.
yeah.
But it's like this is the myth is that if we get to that ideal size, or an ideal body that we're going to feel better, that we're going to feel more confident, that we're going to be happier. And it's not true. That is the
No.
big myth, right?
Yeah.
We know that women who are thin or, have that ideal body type, the models, the actresses, the bodybuilders, they're just as unhappy with their bodies as everyone
Mm-hmm.
else.
Yeah.
That's the myth, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They may not get as much, they may not experience as much discrimination in terms of, how they look. But, on the other hand, they get a lot of positive feedback for their physical appearance as well, which is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a good thing either,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
this whole focus on our physical appearance in general isn't good for anyone. But the
Good.
but there's we can we can focus on how can I feel more confident now? How can I be happier now? How can I do what I want to do now? Rather than putting our lives on hold and saying, well, when I get to this weight, then I'll go out on a date or I'll get
Mm-hmm.
that new job or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We can get those things that now. We don't have to wait till then.
Mm-hmm.
That's the myth.
Yeah.
That's what's going to bring us what we're
Yeah.
looking for.
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
it. Yeah. It's important to change the way you think about things,
mhm,
because like you said, you're losing the weight, or maybe you would want to gain a little bit more weight. You gain it, but then if in your mind you're still thinking that, oh no, I have too much weight, or you didn't work on your mental state, then it's staying
right.
the same.
Yeah, I mean that's the key is like accepting ourselves now and where we are now, how we look now is so important because when we change our physical appearance, if we don't love ourselves already, most likely we're not going to love ourselves then either.
Yeah.
We might
Mhm.
for a short period is like this false positive effect, like, oh,
Yeah.
I feel so good. I'm
Mhm.
getting all this positive feedback, like we were talking
Yeah.
about. Everyone's saying, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, you look great, whatever. But that's just like superficial. And in the end, you're the same person underneath. So we have to work from the inside out to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
And if I mean,
Mhm.
it's almost more important to feel good about ourselves right now, no matter how we look,
Mhm.
because that's the important thing. And then maybe it doesn't matter anymore. Like you feel so
Mhm.
good about yourself that why was I so worried about that? Like why do I even care about that?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Becomes less of an issue in the end.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. And how we feel as well is the type of people we attract. So if we happy with
exactly.
ourselves, no matter how we look like, we will
Hmm.
still be able to attract people that are happy with us, and happy to have us in their lives and everything. So it's not like you
Right.
said, it's not when you reach a particular weight, it's then that you can have a relationship, or it's then that you can have people that would like to talk with you or anything. So
Right.
it's
I mean, and
what
then
you
the
like.
reality is like we want to. I mean, at least for me, I want to be in relationships with people who care about me as a person, not because of how I look. So if you
Mm-hmm.
attract someone primarily based on that, what does that mean in the long term? We're not going to
Yeah,
stay the same our whole lives, most likely. We're going to
correct.
change in lots of ways. So we
Mm-hmm.
want to attract people who really care about us for who we are, not how we look. So,
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed.
mhm.
Okay, so Joanne, you have been giving us a lot of tips and advice, but not but. Is there any tips or advice that you would want to give us? Because it has been a lot of information. We have been talking
Mhm.
about the different cultures, and how you can kind of like change your mindset for you to be happy
Mhm.
with yourself, and taking time with your food and not feeling guilty. So is there a tip or advice when we reach
Yeah.
to the end?
I mean, I think one of the things we didn't touch on that I like to focus on is gratitude. So, that can come into play when we're eating and just taking a moment to be grateful for our food, which helps us to actually pause before we
Mhm.
eat. I think there's a reason why so many traditions pray or take a pause before we eat is, both to be grateful and to get our bodies into that relaxation state. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's conscious or not, but it does do that.
Mhm.
And, regarding our bodies, shifting from being so critical of what we don't like about our bodies and focusing on what we're grateful for and what our bodies can do for us. So, what do we appreciate about our bodies? Because, I mean, the human body is incredible, right? All
Mhm.
the things that it does for us, to be able to
Mhm.
walk, to move, to see, to speak, our heart, our lungs. I mean, we can't live without our bodies. So,
Mhm.
focusing more on gratitude as opposed to always criticizing what we don't like,
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
is a good practice. Not
Yeah.
easy, but it's a way to shift the
Yes.
mindset.
Correct. And it
Yeah.
has helped with the stress too, because
Mhm.
then it will just teach your mind that there's nothing going on, and then it will relax your body, like you said as well. So
Yeah.
it's really something good to practice. I just
Yes.
try to do it every day, and then also tell my clients as well
Mhm.
that make the shift. Not
Mhm.
even when you're saying something negative about yourself, try to change it into something positive and say
Mhm.
something that you're grateful about yourself, no matter how
Mhm.
small it is.
Yep. Yep. Even being grateful for those mistakes we make,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh,
Yeah,
thank you for teaching me something that I needed to know.
yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
all of our issues around body and weight and food can be very powerful for teaching us the
Yeah,
lessons we need to
yeah.
learn. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Correct.
another shift in the mindset that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
helpful.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, Joanne, thank you very much. I enjoy this conversation, and especially sharing experience and getting a little bit more about what an eating psychology coach is, and
Mhm.
what we as women and human beings can do in our daily lives, and how to appreciate food more.
Mhm.
Thank you
Yes.
very much for that.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the conversation. It's
You're
great.
most welcome. Thank you. So, viewers, that was it for today. We were talking with Miss Joanne Edinberg, which is a eating psychology coach. And we were talking about weights, how you can change your minds. And we were talking about different myths, how differently we can look at it, and also how differently we can look at our food and appreciate food more, and also our body and how we are in the here and now. So thank you, viewers, for being present. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be here back again with other topics in our series, All Things Women Related. So, Joanne, thank you again. And
Yes.
everybody, have a good evening.
Yes. Thank you so much.